Yashodanandana Prajajanarandana
Yashodanandana Prajajanarandana
Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jayarada Madhava Kunda Bihari Jayarada Madhava Kunda Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Rama Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Gaura Pimanandi Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa Pri Vratika Chajasto Tarasapta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Sirabai Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavadrinda Ki Skandi Bhiti Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Pimanandi All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada Ki. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Sarakaya Taksuram Miritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Sri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanditam Cham Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayasha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering his service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed with practically Tamil and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreya Sayalokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. 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 Mukam karoti vasalam pangum nagayate girim yatripat maham vande Sri Gurum Dinatadanam. Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome. We are continuing I took out the glasses and they're here. Yes. We're continuing from canto number 1. Chapter 8, which is, yes, which is entitled Prayers by Queen Kunti. And, God, very bright. What text we're doing? Let's see.
I am not here 1 month, last 1 month.
You're not here 1 month.
Last 1 month.
Okay, because, well, you're here but not here. Means you're in the Pujari room. You're right.
Kishore Prabhu read after 7th you went.
Right.
7th, 8th, 9th.
He read 1, 2, 3. Well, he read, but we didn't read. Let's see. I recall it was the prayers of Uttara.
12.
Huh?
12. 1, 8, 12.
Uttara says, and yes, number 12. Okay. Tarhi Evatha Muni Srestha Pandavaha Pancha Sayakan Atmano Bhimukhan Diptan Alakshastrani Upadaduhu Taryevata Munishrestha Pandava Pancha Sayakan Atmano Bhimukhan Diptan Alakshastra-nyupadaduhu Taryevata Munishrestha Pandava Pancha Sakyakan Atmano Bhimukhan Diptan Alakshastra-nyupadaduhu Taryevata Munishrestha Pandava Pancha Sayakan Atmano Bhimukhan Diptan Alakshastra-nyupadaduhu
Taryevata Muni Shrestha
Pandava Pancha Sayakan
Atmano Abhimukhan Dipti
Atmano bhimukan diptan alakshasranyupadadu
Taryevata munisheshta
Tadyevatha munishrestha
Pandava panchasayakan
Pandava panchasayakan
Atmano bhimukhan diptan
Atmano bhimukan diptan
Alakshastani upadadahu
alakshasranyupadadu Tadhi then eva also atha therefore munishrestha O chief among the munis Pandavaha all the sons of Pandu Pancha five Sayakan weapons Atmanaha own selves Abhimukhan towards Diptan glaring Alakshya seeing it Astrani weapons Upadaduhu took up Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. O foremost among the great thinkers, Munis, Shonaka, seeing the glaring Brahmastra proceeding towards them, the Pandavas took up their 5 respective weapons. Kindly repeat after me. O foremost among the great thinkers, Munis, Shonaka, seeing the glaring Brahmastra proceeding towards them, the Pandavas took up their respective weapons. Purport. The Brahmastras are finer than the nuclear weapons. Ashwatthama discharged the Brahmastra simply to kill the Pandavas, and namely the 5 brothers headed by Maharaj Yudhishthira and their only grandson, who was lying within the womb of Uttara. Therefore, the Brahmastra, more effective and finer than the atomic weapons, was not as blind as the atomic bombs. When the atomic bombs are discharged, they do not discriminate between the target and others. Mainly, the atomic bombs do harm to the innocent because there is no control. The Brahmastra is not like that. It marks out the target and proceeds accordingly without harming the innocent. Translation again. O foremost among the great thinkers, Munis, Shonaka, seeing the glaring Brahmastra proceeding towards them, the Pandavas took up their 5 respective weapons. So there are 2 things happening at the same time. It means that Aswatthama, not only we were hearing about one arrow coming in the direction of Uttara, but here it also mentions that the Pandavas were also targeted. In other words, Ashwatthama's plan was to completely destroy the Kuru dynasty, and the only surviving members were the 5 Pandavas and the yet unborn child within the womb of Uttara, who, as we will see here, actually ultimately was could only be protected by the Supreme Lord himself, Lord Krishna, who was also present. This would have destroyed the whole dynasty, and that was, the intent of Ashwatthama. Of course, we talked about Brahmastra weapon before as well, and it's here it is again being explained how in the Vedic culture, part of the military science was to actually learn the art of mantra recitation. The different weapons that were used were actually we call it imbued. They were injected. They were injected with power, specific power. And what is nicely underlined here is that although Brahmastra weapon was as powerful, similar, let's say, to nuclear bombs, which are extremely powerful, the main difference was that the art was so greatly developed in the Vedic culture that only the specific targeted object would actually be destroyed, and not like the very we could say uncontrolled and very wide destruction that takes place. That's why the world now, for example, has been for many years, and even more so now, on the verge of nuclear nuclear war. Prabhupada actually spoke about this many years ago. He spoke about, because they have made these bombs, at one point they will use. Prabhupada spoke about World War III. And because such weapons are manufactured by people who actually have no proper understanding of dharma, and also no proper control of these destructive weapons. And a number of countries actually have these nuclear weapons, which can be very devastating or very destructive. So that is the in that context, actually, Srila Prabhupada was therefore urging, advising that the devotees, what are 2 ways to prepare ourselves for nuclear war? Chanting Hare Krishna. But the other one, Prabhupada was also giving some, of course, the best practical way is to chant the holy name, because ultimately this body will be destroyed, whether it's by nuclear bomb or other ways. But the other way that Prabhupada, the other instruction that Srila Prabhupada gave was um, to establish um, communities that are away from big cities, because generally when war takes place, the cities are the ones that are targeted. Of course, if a nuclear war takes place, regardless of where one may be living, uh, there will be definitely mass destruction. But Prabhupada mentioned that after this war, the preaching will be very good. Um, that means Prabhupada actually mentions, okay, on a large scale, there will be destruction, but it will not um, it will not be so devastating that the whole planet will disappear or that everyone uh, uh, will be. But definitely, it will have a major impact on the world situation. And of course, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to to preach, knowing that by distributing this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, then that is the way that those who are of impure consciousness can, just like interesting, uh, just a few days ago, this became somewhat news. You know, in different countries, they have at different times, just like here in India, they had elections. So they had elections in the UK, and the new prime minister, when one is taking oath, one generally uses a holy book. So in the Western world, they use the Bible. But this person, he was using both the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. You saw?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard. So I heard.
right. So there's a picture actually of him holding, which is very interesting because he's not from, I mean, I don't know what connection, but uh, he has obviously um, some high respect for the Bhagavad Gita. And this was, of course, Srila Prabhupada's hope, you know, from the very beginning of his early writings, in particular the essay on Gita Nagari, which is specifically nicely explaining how from the instructions or the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, uh, if the leaders in society um, can be trained in the science of the Bhagavad Gita, then this very destructive mentality which is presently existing all over the world can be actually can be can be removed or can be changed. So it means that actually Vedic culture is such that not only on the spiritual or transcendental level is there immense benefit, but also there's a purport I was reading yesterday actually that was from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, uh, where it was, yeah, Yudhishthira Maharaj was preparing to actually arrange for Krishna to be honored and recognized. This was an earlier instruction or advice given by Uddhava, how to arrange in such a way that Krishna. So this was in connection with the Rajasuya sacrifice that Yudhishthira Maharaj was planning, where whenever you have like a big program festival, you invite big people, important people, and so in the purport it was nicely Srila Prabhupada actually was quoted, because those purports were not written by Srila Prabhupada in the 11th canto, 12th canto. And the quote by Srila Prabhupada was in reference to when God consciousness is followed and accepted within society, means when the leaders take up to the teachings, in particular of the universal teachings of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, then all things, all opulence follows, both materially and spiritually. So this is what we are working towards, convincing people in general, and sometimes we have to begin with convincing our own devotees also, that when we follow nicely the good instructions, both spiritual instructions as well as material instructions, just like here, this weapon, Brahmastra, that is something material. That art and that science is based on material sound vibration. And this is the nature of the Vedic knowledge, Vedic sciences. They are very, very deep and profound sciences, which when we know about these sciences, when we follow and put into practice, it will give such type of very, such types of results. Just like we hear also, someone shared a few days back also, the one Brahmana in Ahobilam, who this used to be the common practice many years or maybe many centuries ago, that Brahmanas would, so Kshatriyas were powerful because they knew mantras, and Brahmanas also, they knew also both material and spiritual mantras. So they were showing one Brahmana who was chanting some mantras to light fire, to make fire appear, which was another demonstration, let's say, of the power of sound vibration. So in other words, we have double reason for taking up or following, studying and applying the sciences that are given in the Vedic literatures. And it's, I guess, part of the unfortunate situation that we generally, within the context of education, we generally give less less attention to deeply studying actually what is contained in our Shastra. So these are a few things. Any thoughts on this?
That's a question, that how to teach children to focus, this focus of their mind. Because I saw movies that in Buddhist monastery children are really disciplined, sitting in line, but the stick is there in the hand of the teacher, and they mostly, beat the children. That they are doing their practice by fear.
They're doing practice by
Their
fear.
fear.
Yeah. Right.
So it looks like something is not correct. So why not generally how we can teach children by some other method?
Yes. How to teach our children so that they come out as responsible and clear thinking, whatever. Yeah. The other day we were discussing how in the pastimes of Krishna and Balaram, that was in the context of their daily, the title of that chapter actually in the 10th canto, the daily activities of Krishna. And naturally it was explaining this particular verse I was referring to, verse 37 actually, of the 11th chapter, that Krishna and Balaram and their cowherd friends, they would go out with the calves every day, and that one of the main activities in going out with the calves was play. Probably most of us don't think about this too much. Playing, okay, let them play. But actually there's a whole psychology when children, because adults don't play like children play. There's a particular period where one, through that activity of various types of plays, and there's a whole book on this. Actually, it's part of Shastra. It's part of the 64 arts and sciences, and it's called Krishna Krida. Krida means play, actually. The pastimes of Krishna and Balaram 5,000 years ago, which many of which even to this day are practiced, are played in villages of India. Yeah, very simple. But it's not just the activity of play, but of course it's intimately connected. But it has to do with the kind of interaction that takes place when children are on their own interacting with their peers. And this is, I've done a little search on this, and there are some studies that have been made to to support actually this claim that the simple activity of games and plays that children generally are attracted to is very much part of character formation, because that is one of the main and most important features that is underlined by our acharyas, that Vedic education for the younger members of society, for children, its primary objective is to actually help build a good character formation, and of course, even before generally children start playing and interacting amongst themselves, when you know, after 4 or 5 years of age. Before that, they're mostly at home. The first, now that's a whole other dimension as well. How in the Vedic culture we understand that the first educators, the first teachers are actually the parents, and that a child generally should be at home or close to home under the guidance and care of parents, especially the mother, because generally, well, in modern day society, the father goes far away, but in the Vedic culture, father was more at home because the occupation was around the house, in an agrarian setting where the majority of children would be brought up. And from a very early age, they would also be taking good association, and they would start learning some particular trade, because different than our modern understanding that okay, now young boy has to start his education, just like in modern day society there is what's it called, everyone has to go to school up until a certain age in modern day society. Now in the Vedic culture that is different. Yeah, I think it's called mandatory education. I think there's another word possibly in modern day society. But in the Vedic culture, majority of boys actually don't go to school, at least don't go to formal school, but they receive education according to their, ultimately according to their varna, isn't it? And generally, for the vast majority of young boys, of course, we need to say also, or we need to underline that there's also education for the girls, because sometimes we speak only about the education for young boys in the context of Gurukul, or in the context of the kind of education that Krishna and Balaram received by going out with the calves. The girls also receive an education, but different type of education, because they have a different role within Vedic culture and within society. They are they have two specific areas of responsibility. One being mothers, because in the Vedic culture it is strongly encouraged. Prabhupada explains that this was the standard. Previously, every woman had to be married. So in the Vedic culture, it's understandable that young girl needs to be trained and prepared to become an ideal mother. And of course, that means to also become an ideal wife. That's not the only education they receive, but that is one of the foremost responsibilities, which is in the Vedic context seen as quite reasonable, quite natural, and the best arrangement to have a society where there is proper arrangement and proper protection for all members of the society. At the same time, women also have access to all kinds of subject matters which are also delineated in the Vedic literatures, the 64 arts and sciences. They are mentioned actually in the Brahma Samhita, and there's all kinds of very detailed knowledge and arts which can be taken up and traditionally have been taken up by women as well. So it's not that there is no education, but it's a different type of education in general. Non-formal education means they have a nice term in Indonesia. They call pendidikan luar sekolah. Sekolah means school. Luar means outside. Education outside of school, which is actually in the Vedic culture the norm. The majority of individuals study outside of school, what we call school. In the Vedic context, of course, school means gurukul. Yeah. And we know that in society, very small percentage will go to Gurukul because very small percentage of Brahmanas have that ability and the intelligence, etc., to study subject matters that require a lot of concentration, a lot of intelligence. So parents would be an important factor in giving that kind of upbringing to their children, and by living in this more natural environment, and at a certain age, let's say around 5, they would interact more and more with their peers, and that is in the general way how in the Vedic culture young boys would through this type of Vedic education and through this type of Vedic culture, because it's a whole culture that is there, they would receive that type of training and would become responsible, which means that actually, because nowadays we are far removed, we are not living what is meant to be the ideal lifestyle, because some of our devotees wrongly conclude or think that it is not that everyone should be going to farms or villages, but we are misunderstanding that actually this is meant to be the standard lifestyle, the standard way of living. And within that whole lifestyle, agrarian lifestyle, then these Vedic sciences come out. These Vedic sciences are accessible. Otherwise, they're not accessible. Just like we've discussed how Krishi Goraksha, cultivation of land and protection of cows, is the Vedic formula for sustainable economy. So majority of people, including the majority of devotees, don't live that way. So they don't have access actually to what is real Vedic economy, isn't it? And the same thing also for education. The uh, the the vast majority of individuals are meant to receive, as we discussed, non-formal education. Means they will not go to Gurukul in the Vedic context. So we are devoid now of both, isn't it?
I heard that my son have a dilemma. That my grandson is 7 years old, and they have to start
Education.
class to school. But my son understood that it's horrible what happens in the elementary school. So there is another very famous system called Waldorf. I don't know if you heard. That's 100 years ago. There was a person very sensitive for the spiritual uh, energies and feelings, and he worked out some Nyaya philosophy, means Jnana philosophy, but he accepted that children should be raised up to research for their nature and allow them to develop their nature until the age of 10 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to search about their nature, and they should not push them to compete or have a fear in any time. So they educate their teachers to just watch the children and support them. Whatever they want to do on the supervise of the teacher, they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to the nature and they show to the children to the different plants, and they play outside always in the little forests like that.
Yes.
So I can imagine that just playing that to recognizing different plants by the smell, by the forms, it develops quite subtle intelligence.
Yes, yes, yes.
Or making just garlands from 5 different type of flowers,
Yes.
which have to match with form, with smell, and you have to find it. Where are they?
Yes, yes, yes.
Not just to order it from the from the market, but you have to find which forest, which season, when you can reach it.
Yes.
And then also aware of the other elements, animals like snakes are there, and spiders are there, and there are some thorns we have to avoid. That's a very good education for children.
Yes.
Because they practically they start to learn the difficult part of the nature, but they use it for making more and more values, natural values.
Yes.
And
yes, yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So maybe devotees have no understanding properly how to develop their children properly, but they have to learn also from this kind of schools.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, they are like they're very. There are different such types of initiatives since the last maybe 1 or 2 centuries, even that are directly related to the different aspects of the Vedic culture, even though some people may not have had any direct contact. But yes, there are a number of such schools which recognize the need and the importance of being allowing children to, as you mentioned, to find for themselves under, of course, general guidance or supervision. But education should be like a natural type of evolution that takes place, and nature has a major nature in general, and of course in the context of, let's say, Vedic lifestyle, where cows and the livelihood of land and cows are intimately connected, then that automatically enables or gives an opportunity for one to be in contact with nature in so many different ways. Yeah. We can understand this to some extent by reading about it, but ultimately, that is why it's so important to create these communities which bring us closer, isn't it, to nature and closer to ourselves, actually, ultimately, and and that's like the main one of the uh, very strong obstacles in for the vast majority of people, including, of course, more so, even more so for our devotees. There is such an agenda in modern day society by those who are devoid of this understanding and knowledge to just, you know, go towards ever increasing so-called uh, material comforts and material advancement, etc., which is mainly being promoted through ever increasing urbanization, which is totally the opposite of what Vedic culture is promoting. Although cities were there, but cities had a particular purpose, and the cities like Dwarka and Hastinapur were only for a small percentage of the population, right? Yeah. So this is something that our devotees have yet to properly understand, and but it's so vital and so important because that is where we can begin to actually resolve these real problems that modern day society has created for all of us by taking us further and further away from what is more natural, and creating a very artificial situation, and which comes through um, practically uh, in all of our activities, especially in the context of education, of course. Yeah. Generally, these schools have maybe they're a bit expensive to be part of, or
They are they are registered schools.
they are
Registered schools
registered
by
school.
government.
Okay.
They are allowed to
Okay.
do their own way. Of course, they have to accept some
Correct.
conditions, but
Yeah. 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 Um, well, this like nowadays, since many years, homeschooling in many countries. In some countries, of course, is not accepted, or it is like in France, for example. Although our devotees would like to have homeschooling for their children, the government does not allow. Yeah.
yeah, they force.
Right.
Here is one other thing, that how to avoid this kind of situation when someone has power, but the consciousness of the person is in specific time period is very low, like ashwattham.
Right.
So something is missing here, that Pandavas should protect him to cause more and more difficulties by controlling him, not just releasing him. So how we can understand that they just released him, also he had this power and he was increasing affected by ignorance and passion. So
Right. um, how to deal with uh, an individual or
potential
person
dangerous
who has
persons,
such power, but it is being misused, and
yeah.
which can be very destructive. um, well, ultimately, as we'll be as will be seen in the verses to come, ultimately Krishna had to intervene.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's, whenever we are faced with an unfavorable situation, which includes unfavorable individuals who may be very powerful. I mean, the different leaders in the world today have all kinds of power in that they have access to so many things which have a direct influence on others, but unfortunately negatively. So the basic teaching that is there in our Krishna consciousness is that we should seek out the good association of individuals who can help us to progress, and the opposite is there. We should keep distance and avoid those who are having the opposite qualities. And of course, not that we just want to forget about such persons. Um, we try, we can try, should try individually and collectively as a society to to bring about some changes whenever it's possible amongst such individuals, which we do in different.
This may be that the mentorship program, who is well-trained mentors, are supposed to be with that person and help to change the consciousness of the person with a good way, with a scientific way.
Yeah. Well, I think you're aware how in the last quite a few years um, this has become quite um, popular. They train, they call coach, right? Yeah, and other. It's a whole profession that has developed in the last maybe 2 decades or so, where people who may not, it's not necessarily based on spirituality, it's just based on skills and abilities to interact with individuals, and of course, uh, we have mentors. Some of our temples are more active. Um, some of our um, uh, some of our sannyasis or other leaders are more developing this type of, let's say, mentorship, and definitely it's just like also connected with what is called conflict resolution. It does require certain skills that one can develop in how to more easily um, address and understand problems, and how to effectively bring about solutions, or at least contain potential negative effects that may be there because of individuals who are maybe abusing their power, abusing the situation, etc. So yeah, I think they have within our society there are some courses being given in that respect also. Yeah. In general, one who actually develops Krishna consciousness, um, some general ability will be there in terms of being sensitive, hearing from others, etc., which will more easily facilitate how to deal with, let's say, difficult situations or difficult individuals. But yeah, there are specialized, for example, social work or counseling. So there are guidelines. There are specific ways or techniques that one can learn in helping to address certain issues, or how to help individuals in dealing with their situation. Of course, that's very much connected with the whole science of psychology, which is very much
Mind.
yeah.
Controlling the mind.
Yes,
Helping
yes.
control the
Yeah,
mind.
ultimately, correct. That's why this general, for the general mass of people, the basic um, um, book of knowledge, Bhagavad Gita, actually people should know that Bhagavad Gita is actually the best book on psychology.
Yeah, like six chapter also.
Yes.
Shows a lot of very valuable
Yes.
practice.
Yes. Psychology has to do with the mind.
Mind control.
Yes. Knowing how things work. Correct. Yeah.
And the nectar of instruction starts with just mind control process. Vachuvega manasakruda vega.
Yes.
Nothing about spirituality, just control the mind.
Yes.
And you become guru,
Yes.
potential guru. That's just mind control.
Correct. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. No. Yes. No. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam.